What's up, friends, and welcome into Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Chris Welsh. That's Pat Fitzmaurice. Where in the world is Andrew Erickson? He's not here, but his ranks are, and he'll be back next week. Today, we're talking about running backs. Week 4 running back ranks. We're going through the top 36. We're going to go a little in between there, hopefully covering a lot of your guys. And I'll tell you right now, I went on an impassioned speech during our Out of Bounds show, which airs live on Twitch and over on YouTube, about a certain running back. If you watch that show live, you know what we're going to talk about. We will be talking about him a little bit later in the ranks. I went all in on a certain guy, and I think there's going to be some fun running backs to rank a little bit later here, Mr. Pat Fitzmaurice. Can you guess who it is? Because you know the names we're going to talk about on the sheet. Give me his initials. Can you take a guess?
Oh,
he is written. He's one of the, like, I guess, what do we have? Like 10 to 12 running backs that we're going to talk about.
Is it CS?
Ooh, it is not CS. Very good guess, but he's in that general range. So Could it have been Skattebo? Yes, Skattebo is who you were talking about. It is Skattebo when it is incorrect. That's not the running back, but we will be talking about him. So we got a bunch of running backs we're going to be hitting here, hopefully covering all your questions. And if you guys want to follow along with us, fantasypros.com/rankings, you would want to do so, as Mr. Pat Fitzmaurice finished third in the consensus ranks accuracy contest this week. ECR is powered by all of our industry people that take part in that. And Fantasy Pros dominated it this week, which is nice because we put it on here. Fitzy absolutely killed it. And I believe, if I remember correctly, Fitzy is pretty good in the running back territory. So let's just jump right into it. The big board, top 12 for the week. It starts off with my guy, Christian McCaffrey at number 1, going up against the Jags. Bijan Robinson at 2, Jonathan Taylor at 3, Saquon Barkley, James Cook, that's your top 5. Jameer Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Devon Achane, Bucky Irving. Very chalk top 10. Jordan Mason at 11, which I think should be chalk at this point, and Omarion Hampton at 12. So we got a couple guys to hit. Let's start with Jordan Mason here for a second before the obvious. ECR is 11. You've got him at 11. Erickson ended up having him at 10. I am slightly higher than you guys at 8. This matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers is actually a lot better than I think what we just audibly hear in our head when we think about the Steelers, the big plays that they've given up. It's actually a 4-star rating on Fantasy Pros here, given an A matchup grade. They used him to a great degree. He dominated in the Bengals matchup, just killing it. Carson Wentz was efficient, and then they go to Mason, and I think they will do the exact same thing. He is a red zone touchdown equity guy as well. I love everything about Jordan Mason, and I personally feel he should be in that territory of lock top 10 running back while Aaron Jones is out. You're pretty much there. You have him as an RB1, just a little bit slightly lower, or you're essentially at ECR. So what say you about Jordan Mason moving forward? Because I think the questions can probably start moving aside. There was a lot this week in week 3. I bet you got a billion of them, Fitzy, where it was like this guy or Jordan Mason. I just don't think you need to ask those this week. You got to start Jordan Mason.
And I think last week that was the case too, Welsh. I actually had him running back 7 last week.
Yeah, no, I did too. I'm just saying the question I think is gone. We agree.
Sure,
I think we both had him top 8 or 7 or whatever. But now the question needs to kind of float away.
Yeah, and I love the spot last week against the Bengals because the Vikings were coming off that embarrassing 22-6 loss to the Falcons at home. I knew they weren't going to play 2 bad home games in a row. They're just too well coached a team for that to happen. And in come the Bengals, who had to not be feeling great after losing Joe Burrow, knowing you're just not getting to the promised land without Joe Burrow. And all the other problems on this team, like losing Burrow is just a crushing blow. And the Bengals played like a team that were just sort of dealt that death blow to their playoff hopes. So I also thought maybe the Vikings would try to hide Carson Wentz a little bit in his first start. So I thought Mason was a pretty good bet for 20 plus carries. Didn't get that many, only 16, but he turned them into 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. So it's not quite as good a spot this week against the Steelers. Yeah, their run defense was really bad the first 2 weeks, but a little better against the Patriots in week 3. They looked not like a classic Steelers defense with that tough defense they're known for, the tough run
It's also
defense.
a little bit better when the team, I just want to point this out, when the team fumbles 742 times.
True.
It's
True.
also, your defense is a little bit better. Just want to throw that out.
Yes. And, you said there's nothing not to like about Jordan Mason. Well, maybe just one thing. that he offers zero pass catching value. Like, that is my only hang up with Jordan Mason. And if I don't love the matchup, it's going to be hard for me to sneak him inside the top 10 when he just doesn't catch passes at all.
Yeah, well, you don't need to catch passes when you're getting 5 or 6 yards per carry.
True,
but your point is there. PFF does their grades out there. Highly suggest you go check them out. Matchup score grades. He's given the 5th best grade at running back this week. And some interesting notes is the Steelers are ranked 19th of 32 in yards after contact allowed, and only 19th of 32 in missed tackles. So it's a spot that really works well for Jordan Mason. But their offense there has to be a scare for the pass game for it to continue to work. I really like Jordan Mason.
Yeah. And by the way, the workload, Welsh, like he only got 16 carries last week, but part of that was that they were just blowing out the Bengals so badly, like they could just mop up with I forget the backup name, Xavier Smith. Is that his name?
Sure.
I can't even remember the backup's name.
Yeah, some creative player on Madden. Yeah,
exactly. That's a good made-up name, Xavier.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but they also scored like 2 defensive touchdowns. It's a weird matchup. Like, Mason would get more usage, but he is no longer a question. The new question this week is going to be about Omarion Hampton, maybe a little bit less than you would expect. Obviously, Najee Harris out for the season, brutal blow, but Omarion Hampton moves into the starting role full on. We would hope that they're not going to mess with us. He's ranked 12th this week in ECR. Erickson's got him at 11. You've got him at 13. It's up against the Giants. That matchup looks pretty solid as well. Talk to us about Hampton, because this should be a relatively hefty load of questions you'll get this week, but he also was being drafted as like an RB2 in a lot of spots. So at least now he has the chance to fulfill, and this is a really good spot for him this week.
He's being ranked more this week like he was in our pre-draft rankings when there was that surge of excitement for him, and with good reason. Things were looking kind of bleak after 2 weeks, but obviously a big upgrade in his outlook after week 3 when, the bad part of it is the Najee Harris injury that pretty much ensures Hampton is going to be a workhorse going forward. But Hampton also played really well and showed off that first round pedigree in week 3. 19 carries, 71 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, and very encouraging usage in the passing game. 6 catches for 59 yards on 7 targets. He had not been used very much in the passing game at all the first 2 weeks. So good matchup this week against the Giants, whose run defense is dead last in the league in DVOA against the run. And the Giants have given up the 4th most fantasy points to running backs so far.
Was there any... is there anything that stood out with why you didn't make him an RB1? It's just totally arbitrary. You've been 13, you're fine. But you put him at 13, so it's technically the first in the RB2 territory. Is there anything that maybe the passing game? We talked about this on the wide receiver show. You got 3 wide receivers that rank inside the top 30 in fantasy. They're efficient with Herbert. Maybe they just don't need it as much. Just curious your take.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's no one. The only questionable choice, maybe, I think, for guys I have ahead of him are I've got Kyren Williams 1 spot ahead of him. Similar usage outlooks. Maybe Omarion has the better matchup, but I just think Kyren always just has such good touchdown odds that I feel pretty good about that. So I could certainly make a case for having him a spot or 2 higher.
Well, let's talk about Kyren Williams as we talk about some RB2s in the land. Coming in at 13, we've got Kyren Williams on the big board, Ken Walker at 14, Ashton Jeanty down at 15, Breece Hall, Chuba Hubbard, Chase Brown, Javonte Williams, Trey Benson at 20, Travis Etienne at 21, J.K. Dobbins, Cam Skattebo, and Alvin Kamara. My guy is not on this list, by the way. He's on the next list that we're going to talk about, if you even cared. Let's talk about Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty is not free falling, but boy, it feels like it's getting in that territory. He's getting volume. He's getting just enough done, but he is not remotely coming close to living up to those high-end expectations. He's going up against the Chicago Bears this week. Erickson has got him at 12, so he's got him as an RB1. You've got him down at 17, even lower than consensus. So are we in a fade territory of Jeanty? This seems like the first week based on your rankings that, if someone drafted, Devon Achane, Jeanty, and then they had gotten to Jordan Mason. Like, I feel like we're falling into the territory where now you can't ask, should I start Ashton Jeanty? Because there legitimately might be players you're moving over him. Hampton's in there. Chuba Hubbard is ranked at 17. Maybe that's when people go out. So I'm just throwing a couple things out there. What do you think? Are things starting to fade on the excitement upside of Jeanty week to week?
They are, and it doesn't really have all that much to do with Jeanty himself. Like, we're seeing that ability to make guys miss, but it's just that, man, every Ashton Jeanty carry, it seems like for him he has to do Bruce Lee type stuff just to get 3 or 4 yards. Like, fight through a room full of dudes to do it. Like, he is one of only 2 running backs in the NFL who are averaging negative yards before contact, Chase Brown being the other. So he is getting, on average, contacted behind the line of scrimmage. And Ashton Jeanty's passing game usage has been really disappointing. 6 targets, 5 catches, 3 receiving yards. Like, if you can't open holes for this guy in the running game, at least try to get him the ball in space. Like, how about some screens? Like, the Bears aren't that tough a matchup, so maybe this could be a get-right game for Jeanty. And I'd still start him in almost every case, unless you're in an 8-team league and you've got some other really nice options at running back. But yeah, it's just depressing that the blocking has been so bad for him so far and that they're not trying to get him the ball as a pass catcher.
By the way, age yourself a little bit, Bruce Lee. I think the more modern one would be John Wick. You got a John Wick. You got like everybody coming in and you're fighting them off. John Wick would be the play here. Just throwing that out to you.
Didn't you grow up with Bruce Lee movies, Welsh? Like old Bruce Lee movies? I didn't.
I'm not trying to say I'm not quite that old, but like Bruce Lee was introduced to me more for his son. I was a big Crow kid for Brandon Lee, who tragically died in the filming, I believe, of The Crow. And I was more of a Brandon Lee guy than Bruce Lee, but that's, maybe that's blasphemous, but that's also a little bit more of my agedness. But I'm even more of a John Wick guy, big John Wick guy here. Keanu Reeves guy. Not a big Chase Brown guy anymore. Chase Brown ranking 18. I'm going to throw this. I haven't even looked. Where do you have him ranked here? You might not 100% agree. I'm with Erickson on this. I think 18 is too high at this point. I think Chase Brown, unless you really don't have options, he's a guy that I think you just got to put on the bench at this point. He's ranked 18th. It's a bad matchup against Denver. Throwing this out here, going and talking about PFF grades. It is one of the worst matchups of the week. It's given a poor rating. Denver Broncos defensive front ranked 5th out of 32 right now. The offensive line, as mentioned in the wide receiver episode, is atrocious for the Bengals. The play calling stinks. They talked about it on the broadcast. Every first down, they ran this same inside, like shotgunny run or whatever it was with Chase Brown. It was just textbook, and it was never efficient. They literally never, I think they lost yards almost every single time. The bad play calling, they have no pass game to set it up. They have no time on the offensive front to make anything happen. And on top of it all, it's a horrifically bad matchup. So Chase Brown is talented, but I'm worried about it. And I'm with Erickson. Erickson's at 27. I'm a fade of Chase Brown this week. Will we regret that though, Fitzy?
Maybe not. He is running back 31 in fantasy scoring, despite averaging 18.3 touches a game. He's averaging 2.0 yards per carry. And as you said, Welsh, the matchup against Denver, not a very good one. I do have concerns that my running back 19 ranking might be too optimistic. But then again, I do want to follow the volume. Like, volume means a lot to me when I do rankings. And sure. 18.3 touches a game, like, they're trying to get the ball in his hands. And they're going to continue to do so because they cannot lean all that heavily on Jake Browning, as we saw against the Vikings in week 3.
He might just be ranked too high. I think we're going to get tons of questions on him. And a guy that I would start over Chase Brown this week, even though he's ECR 20, and Fitzy, you're not there, but we'll see where we get. It's Trey Benson. Trey Benson is going to have tons and tons of questions. He's ECR 20. Fitz, you've got him at 24. Erickson has got him at 23. He is going to now go and take over the lead back role. What do you think about Trey Benson overall this week?
Oh, man, the Seahawks are a pretty tough matchup. They rank third in DVOA against the run. We just don't know yet whether Trey Benson is actually good. Like, he might be. There's just not enough evidence as of now for us to judge whether he's good or not good. Like, we're about to find out, though, with James Conner out for the year. And I'm curious, do we get full-on Trey Benson workhorse usage, or do we get like maybe more Emari Demercado than we're expecting?
Demercado's annoying. Those annoying guys, I want to move away. But at the same time, like, Benson was being talked about as a 1B type of back. So how I'm approaching Trey Benson is I'm just putting him where you would put James Conner. If James Conner was the guy, I'm putting Trey Benson into that spot. And I think there's a bit more volume to be had. And that is my approach with him this week. I actually think he's like a little bit safer overall. Seattle's defense, like you said, it is a tiny bit better, but I am a starter in Trey Benson this week. And you mentioned him at the top, Cam Skattebo, ECR 23. Erickson's got him at 24. But Fitzy, you're dropping the hammer. Cam Skattebo at 14 for you this week. We saw targets, we saw carries, and we're going to see him in your lineup this week.
He is the truth, Welsh. Cam Skattebo. I am all in. I am Teddy KGB in rounders, splashing the pot with all my chips.
Like, that man, his Skattebo.
Just, seeing is believing. Like, 10 carries for 60 yards and a touchdown last week against a Chiefs defense that is always, always tough against the run, with Steve Spagnuolo calling things. And the passing game usage, 8 targets, 6 catches, 61 yards. He might have fractured ribs on a couple of would-be tacklers. Like, this guy is just so full speed ahead. And I know the Chargers are not an easy matchup, but neither were the Chiefs. And Skattebo smashed in that game last week. And now Tyrone Tracy is hurt. It's going to be journeyman Devin Singletary backing up Skattebo. And I think it stands to reason, Welsh, that the Giants are not going to want to put a lot on rookie QB Jackson Dart's plate in his first NFL start. That could mean a really, really heavy dose of Cam Skattebo this week.
I feel like Skattebo almost deserves the old Gronk, like Skattebo smash. Like they need to have like a passing of the torch situation where that's what he does. He just crashes into everybody, goes crazy, and you're going to be all in. So if you're going to jump into like a Fitzy chat or anything like that, and you're going to ask a Skattebo question, it looks like the answer is going to be Skattebo at this point. That's a guy that you're jumping into. Erickson's got him at 24. He's an RB2. I think you can feel confident about it. The only negative, this is not a good matchup. You know, there's a couple guys that it's like you like, but the Chargers are not exactly a great matchup. But the passing game is probably what throws you back into that because he's involved on both sides.
Yeah, and I thought maybe the Chiefs were going to stuff the Giants running game last week, and they did not stuff the Giants running game. Like, I'm not so sure the Chargers are going to stuff Skattebo either. In fact, I would bet against it.
You are betting against it 100%. RB3s are coming up. But first, if you want to dominate your fantasy football leagues, you can do it with Fantasy Pros Premium. That's how you're going to do it. And you can now get that available for free for 6 months when you deposit and place your first wager on one of our partner sports books. This is the easiest way to get full access to one of our sports books. So friends, go to fantasypros.com/premium to get started today. RB3s. This is the good stuff. 25, Jaylen Warren. Number 26, Quinshon Judkins, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery, TreVeyon Henderson. That's through 30. Nick Chubb, Bill Kroski-Merritt, Ramondre Stevenson, Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, and Bashel Tutin. Those are your 36. The guy that I want to talk about, and that is my smash of the week, is Quinshon Judkins. Quinshon Judkins, I made my big speech about. He is ECR 26 on this list. Erickson's got him at 25. Fitz, you've got him at 28. I'm dropping the hammer on Judkins, and I am at 16 on him this week. Ooh. I am all in on my boy Judkins. And one of the big pieces of it was what he ended up doing against the Green Bay Packers. So you end up telling me he had the highest team attempt percentage according to Fantasy Points data than any other running back this week. So of the carries that a team did, he had every but one. the Browns also went into like a smash mouth type of football against the tough, probably the best defense in the NFL. Now, Judkins was kind of held back through most of the game. I had a bet against him, for being honest about it. And he did not have that. 8 minutes in the fourth quarter, he had wore down the defense. And then he went and he started breaking tackles. And he ended up having more rushing yards against the Green Bay Packers than they had given up with 2 teams, like all the running backs combined in the first 2 games. I think Judkins is the dude there, and they treated him as such. They treated him in dude level. They gave him all the carries. They obviously would use Jerome Ford a little bit in the passing game. They've got Dylan Sampson for that, but like he's the guy for some smash mouth football. Now, the matchup might not look super great, but the same thing happened with the Green Bay Packers. He forces missed tackles. He's getting like 2 yards. If I'm trying to pull this up on Fantasy Points data, but I'm having a hell of a time getting it up right now, is from week 3, he ended up having like 2 yards before he was touched on the line of scrimmage and then getting about 3 yards after. So it's like 5.5 yards per carry. The offensive line is pushing a bit. He's getting yards after. He's getting volume. You're talking about volume. Lions team is tough. I am all in on Judkins. And like, I think I like Judkins more than Chase Brown rest of season at this point. It is a smallish sample size, which is always dangerous. I've kind of warned about. But talk to me about it. You're not quite as high on Judkins. He's got some varying degrees, by the way, on Fantasy Pros. If you check out the rankings, you want to look at the highs and lows. Someone has him as high as 7, but his low doesn't go below 31. But that's a pretty wide range that he's got.
Yeah, and all right, so I'll explain in just a second why I'm a little lower Welsh, but I can understand why you're all in on him. Like, this is his backfield now. Quinshon Judkins owns the Cleveland backfield. Like, he played 55% of the offensive snaps last week and got 95% of the rushing attempts. As you said, only one that did not go to Quinshon Judkins. So this matchup thing, like, he got 18 carries last week and had 94 yards and a touchdown. Like, the Browns stayed in that game. It never turned into an unfriendly game script. Like, they trailed for a lot of that game, but it was always a close game because like the Packers offense just couldn't get out of first gear. They lost a couple of linemen early in the game. They struggled to protect Jordan Love. So like, I mean, that game was a slog. That game was a real offensive slog. And like the Browns passing game was not working. Like, you just can't throw on the Packers consistently. It's just hard. And certainly not with Joe Flacco. So they ran and they were able to run because like they were still within the margin of keeping it close. I wonder if that happens against the Lions this week. Just as good as that Cleveland defense is, like, we saw how good the Lions offense can be last week against the Ravens. And maybe they can put things a little more out of range and the Browns can't give 18 carries to Quinshon Judkins like they did last week. And we know the Lions have a pretty good run defense. So I guess that's my concern. Like, last week's matchup, I think the Packers are going to be kind of a run funnel defense this year, at least as long as opponents are, within 10 points of them. Once they get beyond that. So, because like, it's definitely easier to attack the Packers on the ground than it is through the air.
Yeah. And I think I just kind of also go back to what you said before, and like, volume is king. There still might be some questions about how it's used, but I think if that is taken away from them, that's where you could see Judkins used a little bit more in the passing game. Now they've used Dylan Sampson in there, and it's a really fair thing. That might keep Judkins away from having that top bill, is that if the game is out of control and they're not comfortable using him in the passing game, then he doesn't get the volume. Well, there you go. That's the big thing that's in question. Also want to point out, I had it flipped on Fantasy Points that I was looking at receiving stuff, and I'm like, why can I not get Judkins? It was 2 yards. It was yards after contact per attempt. It was 3 yards before contact per attempt, and then 2 yards after contact. So just the inverse. I just want to make sure. But that's important. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but there's where your average of over 5 yards per carry is he's making more yards after contact. So you get a strong defensive line. They do need to give him volume. I just think he's massively, massively talented. And, I would not be surprised. Honestly, would not be surprised if he ends up becoming like the number one fantasy running back of all of these rookies. But I think he's going to be a top 3 guy. Hampton's now put in a better situation. Jeanty gets volume, but I'm just very pro Judkins right now. I'm trying to, any place I can try to trade for him. If someone doesn't view him as like a top 20 or 25 running back, I want to be a buyer. But I also didn't rank third in the ranks this past week like Fitzy did.
Wouldn't it be wild if Quinshon Judkins outscored Ashton Jeanty in fantasy this year after being unsigned for all this time and being just a complete afterthought in a lot of August drafts? But the difference is, Welsh, 3 yards before contact per carry before contact for Quinshon Judkins, and Ashton Jeanty is having to do John Wick stuff just to get past the line of scrimmage.
100%. And Judkins got 100% inside the 5 carry percentage right now, which is low. So just a lot of good stuff. Sample size questions in here, but this is one I'm jumping immediately on because I think a lot of the data is good. They wore it down, but the Lions get up 21, then we might have some problems for the Browns. Problems. DeAndre Swift, ECR 28. Erickson says 26. Fitzy, you say 30. How positive should we feel about Swift moving forward? He seems to be trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah, not very. I don't think he's very good, honestly. Like in the rushing yards over expected per carry category, Swift is at minus half a yard per carry, and that's actually better than he did last year when he was dead last in the NFL in that category, minus 0.69 rushing yards over expected per carry. And then he gets this matchup against the Raiders, who their pass defense is gettable. Their run defense is actually pretty good. I wonder if we might see more of rookie Kyle Monangai going forward in the Bears backfield, possibly starting as early as this week. Like Swift is just not getting it done.
Maybe a few of those DJ Moore in the backfield things too. We saw so much in camp. Like just try to mix it up, get the ball in his hands possibly. TreVeyon Henderson will garner a lot of questions this week, no doubt. ECR 30. Erickson's got him at 29. Fitz, you got him at 31. So you're the sandwich between the ECR, the bread to the ECR meat there. I think a lot of that is off the assumption because Ramondre had 2 fumbles, Gibson had a fumble, then they started going to TreVeyon more. I think a lot of us are trying to just ship Henderson to more usage. And by the way, it is a phenomenal matchup against the Carolina Panthers. So I think there's justification if you want to try to go all in that he should be higher this week. He's got the opportunity to be like an inside the 20s, a solid RB2 if he is given the volume. You just don't know. You would think Ramondre fumbles 2 times, critical spots that you just let TreVeyon go, but they just have not unleashed that. So maybe is that part of like maybe your hesitation? Is this based off of the other backs being there in usage, or is this based off of what he is going to do if given more carries?
It's just me not knowing what the occupancy is in the New England Patriots doghouse right now. Like are Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson there after what happened last week? And at least we're feeling better about TreVeyon Henderson's hopes for decent touch volume this week. Like in week 2, he got outsnapped by Ramondre Stevenson by like 20 snaps. So I think that gets closer to even this week, and maybe even TreVeyon Henderson pulls ahead. Like Ramondre fumbling twice last week. I know a buddy of mine who has TreVeyon Henderson in a bunch of leagues, like texted me after that second fumble. He's like, for the love of, would you please put TreVeyon Henderson in now? And then the next series after the second Ramondre Stevenson fumble, Antonio Gibson is playing in the backfield. Give it to him on first down, give it to him on second down, and he loses a fumble. So yeah, I mean, you would hope that maybe this gives TreVeyon's usage a big boost, but I'm not so sure yet that he's completely pulled ahead of Ramondre Stevenson. Maybe Ramondre gets a second chance, but man, like this fumbling thing, and we saw a lot of that last year, Welsh, like he is really close to just having the rug yanked out from underneath him completely because of the fumbling thing, which would be great for TreVeyon Henderson investors.
I feel like your friend's text went a little different than you told us on air here. There were a few other little words.
There might have been a few.
You might have taken a few things out. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, just it was just an assumption. Just guessing here. All right. The last guy inside the top 36 is Bill Croskey-Merritt, ECR 32. Erickson's got him a little bit higher at 30. You've got him at 34. I kind of think Bill is floating in. I wanted to ask you this question. I think Croskey's kind of floating in the Isaiah Pacheco area where there's just too many mouths to feed. Who do you have higher this week, Pacheco or Croskey?
Yeah, I have. Oh, that's a good question. Let me check that real quick. I think I might have Pacheco ranked one spot higher. I've got
Pacheco's at 34 in ECR. So
I've got Pacheco at 32, Croskey-Merritt at 34.
Okay, so you've got them flipped. You literally have them flipped versus ECR. So because like I don't love the usage of Croskey, but he is in that touchdown spot. Pacheco's just, it's the same thing every single week. It's just insanity here. I guess you could go either way, but I think they should be viewed in a similar range. Maybe Pacheco because you like the Chiefs a little bit more and you know he's going to get, like, I don't know if you know that Croskey's going to get 10 to 12 carries. They started Chris Rodriguez. McNichols got involved. Debo's running the ball more. So, sorry, you talk through it.
Yeah, Pacheco is in a 2-man backfield and Croskey-Merritt is in a 3-man backfield. Like Jacory Croskey-Merritt had 40% of the offensive snaps last week. He played just one more snap than Chris Rodriguez, who actually got the start for the Commanders. And then Rodriguez had 11 carries. Croskey-Merritt only had 8. And I went back and checked because like the Commanders did win pretty handily over the Raiders to see how much of it was garbage time for Rodriguez at the end. Really on the last series, they did let Rodriguez salted away. He had 2 carries on the Commanders' last series. But even if you take that out, up until then, it was kind of an even rotation between the 2 guys, and Rodriguez still had 1 more carry than Croskey-Merritt before that last possession. So that's it. Like, I just don't know that there's a lot of pass catching upside, and he's splitting carries. So it's just kind of hard to be super excited about Bill right now.
I think there's a pretty firm line, especially if we look at these ranks. After 30, it's like you definitely change tiers because before, you're looking at, I mean, I don't love Swift here, but you got like Judkins, Pollard, Montgomery. You can see the upside of Henderson. Maybe Henderson falls into it. I feel like he doesn't. But then it's like, then you jump to Chubb and Croskey and Stevenson and Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, Tootin. It feels completely different. So there's a big tier change of like what you're comfortable with. Outside the top 36, though, when we always like to highlight a name, I think there's some things that are people still trying to figure out at some RB spots later ranked. And I think one of those is Zach Charbonnet, ECR 55. Looks like you are putting him in the rank spot where he's active. I think he was a full participant on Monday. So I think things are looking to go in that direction, but Walker has been great. So you've got him as a top 36 starting running back this week.
And I do have Walker substantially higher. Like I've got Walker inside the top 20. I've got him RB 16. And I've got Charbonnet right behind Jacory Croskey-Merritt at RB 35. Yeah, assuming he's going to play, it seems like all things are pointing to that. And look, I mean, he had more touches than Kenneth Walker in week 1, more snaps. I don't think that's the case anymore. Like Walker kind of broke out with that big game in week 2 against the Steelers. I think it's now going to be more maybe 60-40, especially with Charbs coming off the injury. But like I do think Charbonnet is playable in a lot of leagues where, once you get beyond the top 25 or so, things start to get pretty dicey at running back.
Dicey. Well, make sure you lock in Fitzy top 10 last week in running backs outside of just the overall rank. So make sure you're following along with that. If we did not answer your question on your running back, you guys still got a chance. We got the weekly Start and Sit live stream on YouTube. Come and ask whatever questions you got. We got a full hour. We hang there Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So lock that in. If you're on the pod, go to youtube.com/fantasypros. You know what to do. Subscribe and make sure you got those notifications so you know when we are live. That's going to do it. Running backs in the books. fantasypros.com/rankings if you want to check out more. For Pat Fitzmaurice, I'm Chris Welsh. Thank you guys for hanging out, and we'll talk to you next time right here on Fantasy Pros.